Questions and support. Well, basically, all the things we're going to present today are available through our help pages. Also, if you have any questions or need further support, you have the support at ReQtest.com, where you can email them whatever queries or things you want to talk about. For those of you who have an assigned customer success manager, I advise you to contact them so they can also help you out with more details. Throughout the webinar, you're able to post your questions in the Q&A section. And also in the end, after the presentation, we'll go through the different questions we got and try to answer them as good as we can. So what are we going to look on today? Well, basically, we will jump into the new key functionality of 2020, and also looking at on a few other hot topics. We'll go through a demo, a kind of a quick, fast-paced demo, where to show you all the new functionality within ReQtest. I'll also speak a little bit briefly about what's coming in ReQtest the coming months, and also what can you expect during 2021. And once again, in the end, we'll have a Q&A. If we jump into the new functionality 2020, I would say that we've had a few different themes during the year. As you might remember, in the spring, as far as I remember, it was on February 1st, we did a big release of our requirement management module. We called this our requirements module 2.0. For those of you who used to work with ReQtest before, the requirement management module was rather, it really didn't have a lot of intelligence. Like, you could work with requirements, but it was quite limited. So we spent, I would say, roughly 6 months just working with the requirements module, and that was released during the spring. And we'll jump into that a bit later on, so I can show you all the key highlights. Once we did the major requirement management module, during kind of summer, we were focusing a lot on kind of different CRs that we wanted to prioritize ourselves, but also that we received from some of you. And I think this is kind of really important to point out also as we look for 2021. We have certain kind of major themes that we are working with, but we can also push in different CRs that we feel that are important, and we also really like if the CRs are coming from you. So please kind of email to support@ReQtest.com and also, or speak to your customer success manager, because we are constantly looking at them to see how we can get them into the product. But during the summer, we did a lot of different kind of stuff into the product. We have notifications, shown our pop-ups, we improved our emails, attachment test apps, etc., time zone management. So a lot of different things that I hope that you felt that helped you when working with ReQtest. Then after summer, we've been focusing a lot on the test module, and we will see that in the demo. So we've done a lot of test module enhancement, especially when it comes to the test runs. So, and that was released now, I think it was November 12th. So it's now been out for a bit more than 10 days. So I hope that you've had time to check it out. Otherwise, we'll look upon it today. And just shortly about what's upcoming for next year. The next major theme we're going to have with ReQtest is basically integrations. We're looking, today we have a Jira integration, but we're looking on how can we integrate to more relevant tools. And in our pipeline, we have test automation, which is one of the key things, which we will start off with, creating integrations. You can push your test automation results into ReQtest. We're looking into reporting, where we're going to hopefully be able to embed Power BI into ReQtest. You'll be able to get very advanced reporting. We're also looking into other kind of more ticketing systems like Zendesk, Freshdesk, etc., to be able to connect ReQtest to that. So I would say that the major theme for the next half of 2021 will be on different kind of integrations that you will see coming. But we'll get back to that a little bit later. But before, and also one more thing that we did a lot this year, maybe it's due to this year being a very strange year, everyone in ReQtest has been working more or less from home since sometime early March. So not only us, we see a lot of other companies are also starting up their webinars, but we feel it's a very positive thing. It's a way where we can kind of come out and communicate about the things we've done, and we can also have a more dialogue with you about what do you think about the product and what we should improve. So we've done a lot of webinars during this year about the requirement management module, how you connect ReQtest to Jira, our Agile board. We've also been working a lot with creating an ERP accelerator for ReQtest in order to help you kind of really kick off your ERP projects in a better way with processes, pre-configure ReQtest, downloading the standard processes from your ERP application into ReQtest so you can utilize them there. All those webinars are available on our website, and I really encourage you to have a look on them when you have time, because I think that they help you kind of understand how much more value you can get from ReQtest. And then finally, we also did a requirement management ebook that released here probably a month ago or so, which is also kind of a way, if you kind of if you're starting up with your requirement management, you come a bit, I think that this is a very good book to read about kind of the basics and fundamentals on requirement management, but also how you can utilize ReQtest when working with requirement management. But before I jump into the demo, I kind of want to kind of stay a little bit with requirement management, because also one of the key things for ReQtest is, and also looking at what we did this year, is to just see kind of what is our purpose, like what are we trying to achieve, and how are we trying to help you? And for us, I think that we're focusing on requirements management and test management within projects and maintenance, because like when we look upon it, we would say that requirements and tests are basically two sides of the same coin. If you look on many different kind of reports, like why project go wrong, basically many times it's due to poor requirements, or lacking requirements, and not speaking to all stakeholders, requirements are poorly defined, etc., etc. I think it's impossible to achieve a high quality output of your project if you don't have good requirements. So like from our perspective, when we think about quality starts with having the right requirements. And that's why also we at ReQtest have spent a lot of time on actually building really good requirement management module, because like without good requirements, the project will not be able to meet its different goals and targets. The other part of quality is obviously test. Test ensures that we have quality in the released product, but they go hand in hand. Also, another thing that is important for us is that we really believe that testing should start as early as possible, like already when requirements are actually defined. Testing is not something that you should do kind of, oh yeah, we need to do some tests, let's do it in the end. Testing should be prepared, planned, and defined already in the requirement management phase, in order to ensure that you have tests, like you can actually verify the requirements early on, and that will help you throughout the process. Also, another thing that looking at ReQtest, we are not primarily focusing on developers. Like developers is not the core user group of ReQtest, but we see that there are a lot of other stakeholders that we need for the projects. We have product owners, we have project managers, we might have scrum masters, we have test managers, we have business analysts, and we also have kind of normal people from the business doing UAT testing. And I think that like ReQtest is primarily focused on the business side of it, because we truly believe that in order to have successful software projects, you and your business, you need to manage and control your implementations. You cannot just sit back and let the suppliers or do the work. You need to be able to control, do you have the right requirements? How are you going to test this? Because in the end, this is going to be your software that you're going to live with, and you need to ensure that it works. And obviously the software and the projects that you're running, most of the times they are there to actually support your business need, maybe your digital transformation. And finally, we spoke about a lot of different roles, but I think that this is also something that ReQtest, we're focusing on usability. We want many different kind of roles, people with different competencies to collaborate in ReQtest. And I think like looking at this slide, this is more kind of saying like, why are we not only doing tests? Why are we not doing requirements? We think that they're the two sides of the same coin and they need to work together. And that's why we built ReQtest as it is today. But then let's jump a little bit into the demo. So let's go here, we go here, and we go here. So let's start off with the test module. And the reason I'm starting a little bit backwards, but I'm starting with the test module, and that's because we had that release just kind of 2 weeks ago. So let's jump in the test module. So we go to test, and we go to test cases. Actually, most of the improvements we've done are within test runs, but I'll actually start with test cases. Because one thing that we have done here within test cases is the versioning and comparison functionality. And I think that we did that in requirement management model during the spring, but now we actually have it here in test cases. And I think that what this does is that every time there's an update of the test case, there's a new version created, and you can very easily go in and say, hey, what's the difference between those different versions? You go in and you compare them, and you can very easily go in and say, okay, this is my version 1, this is my version 3, and yellow marked, I can very easily see, okay, these are the things that were changed between version 1 and version 3. So the major kind of overhaul we did within the test case module, for test cases, is versioning and also comparing. And we'll actually get back to that a little bit because we also integrated that functionality into the test run functionality. Another thing we did was also going to test suites. And basically, test suites is where you are able to group and structure your different test cases before you also add into test runs. So test cases is more of a flat structure, but test suites are where we recommend you to kind of structure your different test cases that you then can put into your test runs. So what was new in here, if we go to one of the test suites, for example, we made it easier for you to kind of on the fly create new test cases. Also, another thing that we didn't have before was also the availability to, I'll go back just to test suites, to go and copy it. And basically you can now copy your test suite to another project, and you basically get all the content in the test suite, and you can also get all the attached files. You just select which project you want to copy to, which makes it much more easy to kind of reuse your assets within different projects. So those were the kind of 2 main things in test cases and test suites. But let's now go and look on test runs where we kind of made the major improvements. So within test runs, I would say that the biggest change we did was within the execution results here, is that now you're able to filter. So let's go, I want to see all the test runs that has not been run, and it very easily shows me which are the ones that has not been run. So we now have a way of looking and filtering the different execution results on an aggregated level. We also have that functionality when you're within the specific test run, but this allows you to rather more quickly work with the data. And if there's kind of one theme we will see, and we will see more of that within the requirement management module, is that working with kind of large amounts of data is something we see a lot of our customers are doing. And we want to help you to get the different views, the different filters, so you can work with the data that you have. But then let's jump into one of the test runs that we see here. And basically, as I showed you before, we have execution results. You can very easily now go in and say, okay, just show me the ones that are not run. And you very quickly will get that overview within it. If we also look upon another thing we did before is also coming to attachments. And this is something that came from some of you that were actually telling us, like, you wanted to give proofs of the different test results you had. And if we just go, for example, to this test case, we can there see that there are different test cases. This is functionality we had before, but also what we did was the possibility to actually add an attachment to an individual test step. And this can be used in multiple ways. You can use it if you want to give proof of this is the result I got from executing the test step, but you could also use it if you want to add an instruction. So once again, I think this is kind of one key thing for me, is that ReQtest is a versatile tool, and we build functionality so you can utilize it in many different ways. And how many of our kind of successful customers are using ReQtest is that they're using the tool, they're configuring it to their needs, but they also have process and method descriptions showing how the customer themselves are using ReQtest for what purpose. So that is something I strongly recommend to have, kind of complementing process and method descriptions on how you use ReQtest yourself. But if we then go to one of the major functionalities before, is that we now have a few more things here in the menu. Before, we didn't really have a good workflow for how we would work with assigning test cases. And it was easy if you had only one person who would execute one test run, then it was easy. If you had multiple people who wanted to execute the test run, you ran into problems since we had something that was called owner that you had to set. So it wasn't not really good workflow. That has now been improved a lot by having assigned test case. And it's rather easy, like you prepare your test cases, you structure them in your test suites, and then when you are doing your planning, you select the test cases you want to be executed. And let's say I assign them here to myself. So then we can see here assigned to. Also, there's another row, as you can see, I've done some preparations. I already executed a few of the test cases, but you will also be able to see executed by, to be able to see like, okay, who was it assigned to, who was it executed by? And there is surrounding functionality around that. So let's say I assign this one to myself, but Masha would go in and try to execute it. He will get warning messages saying like, are you really sure you want to execute this? You're not assigned to it, etc. So there is surrounding functionality around this assigned to and executed by. But in this case now we have assigned to, and what I now can do is I can go in and notify the testers. So I click on notify the testers, and then I will be asked, do I want to remind the user to execute all the test cases, or do I only want them to execute the ones that has not yet been executed? But in this case, I will tell myself, you should execute all the test cases. So I send that to myself, and let's see what I'm getting. So here we go. And here's the email. We check here. It was a hi, Henrik. Some test cases are assigned to you. Here are the test cases, and I have two options. For those of you who have used EasyTest before, you might be familiar to this kind of orange button. But basically, if you click on View Test Run, you will get back here. And this is what we call the advanced mode. Like this is where you can utilize all functionality. You probably have to be somewhat of an advanced user to utilize this. But we also saw that ReQtest is many times used for UAT testing. And we wanted to say, like, how can we make testing as easy as kind of filling in a survey online? And that's why we did EasyTest. So if I go back to the email, in this case, I go to EasyTest. And we've had EasyTest now since last year, but this has now been improved. So we kind of cleaned up even more this interface. The tester will only see the information that is relevant for that person. And also here, you see there are only 4 test cases to be executed, which means that only the ones that are assigned to you will be here. So we truly believe that with this new functionality, it's so much easier to assign. So first you do your planning, and you assign it to the people who will execute it. You notify them, they get a message, they're gonna go and execute it. If they utilize EasyTest, they will only be able to see what they actually should execute, and that makes their life simpler also. And then in the end, you as an advanced user, you can be in here, have the cockpit, you can see, have I done all the assignments? What are the execution results? Have they been executed? Oh, I see some of the guys here haven't done their execution. Go in, notify them, tell them. So we hope that this kind of flow will actually help you to be able to be more efficient when it comes to your flow of planning and executing testing. Another thing that we also have in here are 2 more icons, and this is coming back to what we saw about in test cases. So the first button here is compare with the latest version. So here we see version 2 is the one that is actually currently used in this test run. So let's go and say, what does the version 2 look like compared to version 3? So in version 2, this is the info I have. Last modified, obviously that has changed since it's a new version. And we can see here, okay, there's actually been added something in here that I should know about. So this helps you to actually be reminded to see that, okay, I actually have newer versions of the test cases that I should be using. So in this case, we have this button, up this test case to the latest version. You click that one, you get the latest version. So this is also a way of how we're utilizing the versioning functionality, but also helping you to understand, am I working with the latest correct version in the test runs. Also, another thing that we also did is kind of going back to here, copy test runs. I'll just show that we have a duplication of it. And also, if you want to kind of, once again, many times we see that customers want to reuse the information they create, no matter if it's test suites or test runs. So here you can duplicate your test runs. You can choose, do I want to copy all or just the failed content? And also here, if you want to keep the assignments that you did, you can also keep them, which makes it easier for you to just copy your test run and redo it again if you want to. So these are some of the highlights we did in the test management module. But before we leave and look at requirement management, I'll also show you another functionality that we have in test cases, but we also have it in bugs and requirements. We have it everywhere we have comments. So let's go in here to one of the test cases. And as you know, we have comments here in the bottom. So also something we added, I think now a few months ago, is I'm now able to go in and tell and communicate directly from ReQtest about please see if we need step 6, and I add it. So you add the comment. So once again, we're keeping all the information in ReQtest for traceability going back, but now we also are able to get notifications, as we saw right now. I got a new email that we got here. Okay, perfect. Another email, Henrik, as I mentioned in the test case, please see if we need another step 6, and I can click here and I'll get to it. So once again, like a very good functionality to ensure that all your data is stored within ReQtest, but ReQtest now also helps you to notify other users about what you want them to do. Maybe a smaller thing, but I don't know. But I don't know. Maybe some of you remember our old templates for emails. That's also something we did. We tried to freshen up and clean up our emails so they look a little bit better. We still might have some work to do, but that's also another thing we did during this year. So those were the major things that we looked upon when it was within the test management module. But then let's jump into the requirement management module. The major things that I would say when it comes to, before I start, we internally, we're referring this to our requirements management module 2.0. And basically what this means that every time you start a new project, you will automatically get the latest version of the requirement management module. But when we did the release, it was non-disruptive, which means that if you started working with your requirements before February 1st this year, you are still on 1.0. You got some added functionality, but you basically now have 2 options of how you can get the full functionality. Option number 1 is basically you start a new project, but option number 2 is that you can convert your current requirement management 1.0 to 2.0. And that you will find within the admin folder where you can do, there's a guide on how you can convert. I'm not saying you have to do it, but there's a bit more functionality in the 2.0 that you will benefit from. Some customers have chosen to convert, others are starting automatically their new projects in 2.0. So what are the key things when it comes to the new requirement management model? Well, the first thing you will see here is, I would say it's much more visually good. Like we are now not using just folders. We used to have only folders before that were done. They had no logic within them. Now you're basically able to structure your requirements in a much better way. And also there's a logic in how you structure it. So basically every object is inheriting information upwards. So if we go to this level, you will know everything that you will see everything beneath there. If you go to general, it inherits everything else from underneath. So there is logic and connections in this hierarchy that you benefit from. If you want to set up your own requirement management structure, then as with all the other stuff in ReQtest, you go to customize forms and you are able to, in requirements hierarchy levels, add the different levels. You can name them. In this case, we have project, etc. People are sometimes using epic features, whatever. So you're basically able to create the number of levels you need. We today have a limit up to 10. I think that should be sufficient, but you can create as many levels as you want to. You name them, and you can also define templates that are specific for each level. So if we go back here and look further, what are the key things that we will see? So I'll go here to the root folder. And one thing that is also very new is basically within manage views. And I'll actually start with this one, because manage views, this is also something that you're using both within bugs and test management module. But here is also something that we did a big improvement on during this year. Because we strongly believe that working with these views here is a very good way for you to be able to like select and pre-select what are the different columns you want to look on, and also do you want to have certain filtering. By creating views, it makes it easier to quicker come to the kind of data that is presented the way you would like to. We had this view functionality before, but we really didn't have a good managed view functionality. But now we have a managed view functionality that we see here, which basically allows you to do different things. You can say, well, I want to have my views on top. So you put my views on top. You might say that I want to have my test results here. I want to have that as a second one. I can also go in and rename them. I can go in and say, do I want to share this view or not? Also here, I will see if other project members have shared views with me. I'm able to see them here, but I can also select, do I actually want to see them or not? And then also we have a few standard views that are kind of that we are pushing from the application. So by having this managed views, it actually helps you now to much more easy structure, share, decide what you want to see and not want to see, because we truly believe that if you work in a very good and structured way with the views, now you see that these have changed, this will make it much more easy for you to see the data that you're looking for. And once again, this managed view functionality is not only in requirement management, it's also in the other modules where you have this kind of view selector. But I think that kind of coming back to what I spoke about early on, a lot in ReQtest comes to how you're able to work with kind of big amounts of data. So that's why we looked on the view here, but then we also have other views. So we have something we call document view. And the document view we created because we thought that before in ReQtest, you were working a lot on case like requirement by requirement. You could go into a certain requirement, you could look upon that, you could go to the next one. Let's my mouse. Could you go to the next one, and you could potentially go in here and you could see them all. But this is not the very readable format. So what we did was that we created the document view. We now easily can go scroll and see all the different requirements in this structure. And also, like, one of the benefits is that if you can work directly with the document view, if I want to go in and change requirement, I can just click on it and click save here, and I actually do the updates directly. And I can also on the fly here, right click and create requirement and add a new requirement underneath. So basically what we're doing is like kind of giving you more of a word-like feel where you can kind of, we increase readability of a document, but you can also interact more with the data, add, change stuff within it. And we're looking to evolve this document view even further. And if you want to share something with someone who doesn't have ReQtest, we also have this export to PDF button. Once again, like I think that ever changed, in order to be consistent in your data, you should keep it in ReQtest. But if you want to share something, they get it out here. Maybe not the most inspiring, I would say, printout, but still it kind of does the job. And if you want to share your requirements in an easy way, you can push it out. So that was the document view. So let's then jump into the reporting view. In the reporting view, basically, we have now a different kind of dashboard. We can more see information about the underlying content that you have. How many requirements do I have? And right now, remember, I'm on the root folder. How many test cases I have? How good is my test coverage? How many test cases has been executed? And how many bugs do I have? And I think that this one is allowing you to see relevant data. And basically, if you go down a further level, obviously in the reporting view, then you will only see data that is relevant for this specific one. What I will actually now show you is that if we go back to reporting view up here, you see that we have total requirements, test cases execute number of bugs. As many of you know, we have a Jira connection, and we're actually kind of advocates for Jira because we know that many developers like to work with Jira. And I think that they should continue working with Jira, but I think that ReQtest serves a different need when it comes to the business need of managing your requirements, managing your test cases, and your project. But I will now just show you actually how we are utilizing ReQtest ourselves, just so you can get a feel for how it looks when you have a Jira connection. Our R&D department are using Jira, and how does this work together? So I go to our own project, we go to requirements here, and let's see where we are. So basically, we did a big release here on November 13th. This is when we did the release of our test management model updates. So if I click here and I go to the reporting view, now you will be able to see that I get a bit more data. Obviously, this sprint has been done. So I can see we delivered 22 requirements. We had 355 test cases. We had full test coverage. Everything was completed. But now I'm also getting data from Jira. How many tasks did the developers break my requirements down to? What were the estimates of those tasks? Like how many of my requirements actually had tasks so I know that have they actually started working on my requirements? Did they start? How many of the tasks did they complete? How much time did they spend? How many test cases has been executed? How many bugs did I get? So for me, kind of as a CEO, but also kind of a product owner, product manager, really wanting to know the status of how are we doing, how are we trending, how many bugs do we have, are we executing the tests we agreed upon? Like this is my dashboard that I use with my product manager for R&D. And this gives me all the high level information I need. And then if we move forward, yes, just an example, this is now the current sprint we're in. It kind of just started. We see that we have 19 requirements that we're going to do. They've started defining tasks. We have estimates here of roughly 1,200 hours. I can also see that this one we haven't really started. And as you see, there's a lot of tasks that hasn't been started. So we just got started and we spent roughly 500 hours. Yeah, okay, we spent 500 hours on a total estimate of 1,200 hours, but we only did 28 tasks. I think I need to have a follow-up with my product manager to see how we're doing, because it might seem like, once again, I don't know the details of it, but I want to have a talk with him and say like, hey, we spent a bit more, almost soon half, but we're only 28 tasks completed. How are we doing? Once again, it's not the tool that will solve all problems, but to me, this dashboard is night and day in order to have control of my requirements, what we're doing with the product. But let's jump back to the demo. So we were in requirement management. We just have seen the reporting view and the document view, but let's now jump down a little bit. So now I go down to one more level. I now go down to this level 1 object. So basically what we have here is that we have one more tab, which is requirement list. The standard view you will see here is the details of your level 1 object. But now you also have to click here on your requirement list. And here you will see what are the requirements that are actually belonging to this one or any of the sub levels. This is the one major thing, but also there has been implemented a second level of menus. And now we're kind of getting into one of the key things about what I spoke before of requirement and test being kind of two sides of the same coin, is that before ReQtest was a bit kind of silo oriented. You had requirements here, you had bugs here, you had tests there. They are all linked. They all belong together. We need to know the relationship. We need to know how they affect each other. We need to have traceability. So what we're trying to do also here with the new requirement management module is actually also to say, like, from the requirement module, you can go in and say, okay, what are the test cases that we have within this one? Let's see here. This was kind of a bad example. We had many of them. Let's go to sales. We go to test cases here and we see how many test cases do I have? Okay, so here are the test cases. So from the requirement management view, I can see how many test cases I have. Obviously, I could have seen it also from the reporting view. I'm just clicking here. These are the test cases. And once again, if I want to know, okay, which are the test cases, I can click on test cases and I see the 4 test cases. So once again, we're trying to move away from being silo-oriented to rather connecting the different objects together. Another thing that I also forgot to tell you, saying like, okay, I have test coverage. I'm 14 of my requirements, they don't have test coverage. Let's check out the test coverage. Okay, so what do we have here? Does it have test coverage? No. Okay, so I quickly can go in and see these are requirements that does not have test coverage. So this is a way of kind of making it much more easy for you to kind of get the high level picture, then be able to drill down. And once again, you don't have to go silo by silo. We're trying to get the modules working together. And then obviously when it comes to bugs, it's exactly the same thing. Like you will see the different bugs in here. And if you want to see the bugs in detail, you click the bugs and you get here. So once again, I will really emphasize, I think that the requirement management module has a lot of great functionality that actually gives you a lot of benefit also in tests and bugs. And I think that if you haven't started working with requirements management directives, you should do that because it all kind of fits together very nicely. Also, finally, we will look on one requirement here. Let's go to this one. And also one of the key things here, as I showed before in test cases, we have the same thing here, comments at Henrik, please review. We go here, add a comment, I will get the email. So we have the same functionality here. Also, as we had with test cases, we have different versions. And if we look in the different versions, I can see which is the current version, and we can go in and compare them. Let's compare number 3 and 2. How are they looking? And I can very easily see, okay, there was a change in title. Was there something else changed? No, it was just a title change. Fine, that's done. Looking at this functionality, this is kind of like the requirement management module 2.0. What we're looking forward to is basically also, we were planning or thinking about having baseline. We didn't really kind of figure out exactly how we wanted it. So baselining functionality is something we're looking into, and that's probably something we will release next week, because now we have, I would say, a very good versioning and comparison functionality. Baselining will probably be the next step here. And this was basically the quick high-level demo of the requirements. Then just a few kind of MISC stuff that I want to tell you about. One thing, I don't know, but this was also something we kind of were getting feedback from you as customers. Maybe we should have done this differently before, but when you have this form, it's really hard to read what's behind it. So we now made it possible for you to kind of take it down so you can go in and you can actually have a look at the data back. You can then open it up again and you can do your changes. So basically we did the forms now to increase usability for you. And then also just final thing that I also want to mention now, especially here we're in this English speaking webinar, is that we also added different time zones. Before we only had Swedish time zones. As a Swede, we are sad, but we understand that Sweden is not the center of the earth. So we now have personal time zones. So any user can go in on their own settings, set their own time zone, and then it works for them as a team. So that was a rather quick demo trying to show you all of the key functionality that we have done during the year. So just a little bit before we kind of jump into the Q&A. So what's next in ReQtest? Well, as I mentioned before, I think integrations will be a key theme for at least the next 6-8 months. We are looking into different integrations. We will start off with test automation. We will look on how we can get integrations to different reporting tools. We're looking into embedding Power BI into ReQtest. You will be able to get really advanced reporting. We're also looking into ticketing systems. We're looking on also Azure DevOps. We have a Jira connection today, but Azure DevOps is also on that list. So I think that when it comes to integrations, there will be a lot of focus during next year. But also another thing is that continuously, when we're doing the major things, we're also able to do different CRs that we feel we should prioritize, or where we get really good suggestions from you guys. So some of the new functionality that's coming, we're looking into business logic and forms, how that can be improved. How can we work with cloning projects? adding test steps on the fly, copying test runs to other projects, etc. So we are continuously looking at what CRs should we do and release in parallel to those major integrations. And then I would say finally, I think that we also feel that the webinars has been really, like, there's been a lot of people attending them this year. We also did our ebook, and there's been a lot of downloads. So I really encourage you to check out what we've done during this year, and we will do many more kind of webinars going forward. And especially if you're interested in test automation, there will be an English-speaking webinar about test automation now, just within the next 2 weeks. So hopefully, if you have time, please join our test automation webinar, which we will hold round about 10th to 15th of December. But now I'm a bit tired of listening to myself, so I'll let Marcia in and see if we have any questions.
Thank you, Henrik, and thank you for presentation. So yes, actually, we have a question. I'm now, and the first question, for the rest of you, while I'm answering questions, feel free to ask new questions in the Q&A box in the bottom right center. It will say Q&A. But if we start with the first question, Henrik, the question is basically the question is there any way where you could use ReQtest for a vendor selection process, especially having your functional, non-functional requirements, and then have your potential, suppliers log on, address how they'd like to have their product address those needs, and then maybe even if there could be some kind of scoring to that. And I thought for myself, I didn't even answer that in the chat. I was just thinking that, this is a question Henrik liked to answer.
I absolutely would like to answer that. And actually, as a part of the ERP accelerator, and actually it's not an ERP accelerator, it's more actually the software implementation accelerator. We are looking into how do you run kind of generic software implementation projects? What kind of setups do you need? What kind of processes do you need? And also this specific need, as you say, this could be in an ERP, it could be a different kind of software. And this, we actually have defined a CR for this, which means that once you have gathered all your requirements, and we will actually make a functionality where you can invite different vendors in, so they can go in and start answering up to show how they will meet up to your requirements. They will do that independent of each other, not knowing about each other. And in the end, you will have all the data in ReQtest. And once again, together with the Power BI functionality that we'll have, you'll get really nice reports and comparisons where you can actually compare the different vendors, like how much are they going to use their standard? How many customizations do you need? What are the total estimates they have, et cetera, et cetera. So yes, we don't, as of today, have that working. You can do workaround today, but we're actually looking into building this functionality, and that probably, if we prioritize it, we can have it within probably, I would say within a month. So but right now, if you're really interested in this kind of functionality and the ERP functionality, please reach out to us, because we will also, in parallel to the other themes, do a lot of stuff that will help you in your software implementation projects. And it's a very good question. And I'm glad to say that we're on top of that, and we'll get it out soon.
Thanks, Henrik. So we have another question also from a UK customer. And the question is, when importing test cases, can you link to requirements via the import? And I can answer that one. So currently you cannot, but this is something that we're actually looking into, along with being able to update your entries via import. So that's a requirement. So I think this is great, because now when we get more people requesting the same things, I can go back to the product manager and see if I can increase the priority of that. But yeah, I think it makes perfect sense to be able to connect things at the point of import. Won't you agree, Henrik?
No, I agree. And also, if we look towards next year, one of the things we see is that obviously we want, if you start working with your requirements in ReQtest and you build things up, there's not that big of a need. But we also see that you might have started off with in Excel, or you might be in another tool and you want to switch to ReQtest. And then obviously this kind of importing becomes a bit cumbersome. But I just want to kind of reach out to you and say that well, like based on your needs, we don't have this functionality in ReQtest. But if you have a need, and also like if you are kind of a customer investing in ReQtest, we also can ensure that we can have some services to see how we can help you out to actually get this in. So please speak to sales or speak to the customer success manager if you have one today, because once again, this is not something we don't have automated functionality for it, but we might be able to provide those services for you.
Thank you. All right. So no, this is just a thank you back to us. Let's see what else we got. So currently no questions from this group. However, we did have another group yesterday, a big group, and we have a couple of questions there that I could bring up. Some of the question was really about being able to, well, basically, could you add the picture on each test steps? And I think this question was asked before we actually showed that. But on the test run, on the option now to being able to add different pictures for each test steps, the part of the question was also what's the purpose, and how should we use this? And obviously, when we design something, we want to keep it kind of open-ended, because in the end of the day, you have your specific processes, and we want to have a tool that's broad enough to being able to support you. So before Henry goes into this, I could tell you that the reason why we have this is because some customers would like their testers to be able to add a proof when something has been successful, while we have others that want to show specific guidelines or guidance to their testers, or at least have the option of adding a picture on a specific step. So and what we're telling you guys is that you can actually use it for both or just one. And we also got the question, well, would it be possible to save these pictures to the bug report? And that's something we're looking into if we can. But at the beginning, the point here is for you to utilize it both as proof or as guidance for the tester. So that was a question. We got a new question now. Is it possible to add screenshots to the different test steps? Not when executing a test case, but when you create a test case. So, Henrik, could you just hover above the picture?
You want to go here?
Yeah. Click that. Yeah. So the way you add a attachment or picture, for instance, it's either by clicking here on the add attachment, or you just Control V, or Command V. So you copy paste it in, and you do that on the point of the test run, not specifically on the test case. Now you can add attachment on test cases, but then it would apply to the entire test case. So you would have that attachment just before the steps.
And I think that is kind of like also, once again, thinking about the attachments here, I think that what you also kind of need to define yourself in the organization is like where do you want to put the attachments? Because here you have the option to put an attachment on a test step level, but if you want to add it on a test run level, you have it here on the aggregated level. So you have that there. But also, if you, for that specific test case, you want to be able to, let's go in here, test case. On that test case, and you want to add it to here, let's go here. We click on that one, and then you're also able to add an attachment down here. So I would say that today you have different options, and I think that you should kind of, within your organization, sit down and say like, well, like, and I think that we would probably recommend that when it comes to attachments, basically instructions for a test case, I think should be here, or it should be on the aggregated level on the test run. But when it comes to actually results that you want to have attachments for, those are the ones that you should put on the test steps. But you can basically decide it yourself, but that would probably be our recommendation.
Yes, thank you, Henrik. I think that was most of the questions. I think is relevant here. So if there's no more questions, do you have anything you would like to say before we end, Henrik?
No, I think that I'm very happy that all of you attended. I hope that you felt that you got a good insight into all the released functionality and also what you can expect from this next year. I think that this has been a very strange year for all of us, and hopefully next year will be much better from different perspectives. But once again, like we have a test automation webinar upcoming in a few weeks. Like if you're interested in test automation, I absolutely think that you should join that. If not, then I would wish you a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and looking forward to speaking to you again during next year.
All right. Thank you, everybody. We'll come back to you with the recording of this session and also the material that Henrik was referring to, like the ebook and stuff like that. We'll come back to you guys with links to everything. And until then, if there's anything else that you need or you want like to discuss, please contact me, Mazia Sal, or your customer success management. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Goodbye.